Hello and welcome back to K and K Real Talk. I'm Kenny and I'm here with my fantastic co-host, Kristen. Hi, Kristen.
Good afternoon, everyone.
We're so excited to be here with you guys, and we've been wanting to talk about this topic for a while, and other things kept coming up, and so we're really glad to finally talk about this topic, which is period anxiety. So for those of you who are brand new, check out all of our previous episodes. We have tons of episodes crossing like anxiety and depression and, self-care and just everything, like everything female health related, everything endo related, everything just kind of health, stress, life related. This is really these videos and some of you we know are just listening to the audio, but we do these episodes specifically for you, and most of the time we get our topic ideas from you, our listeners. So we just appreciate you so much being here with us, and we want to encourage you, if you're brand new, let us know. I'll tell you at the end how you can get in touch with us. Let us know if there's specific topics you want to learn about, specific struggles you have that you feel like people aren't really talking about and you want some solutions to. Even when we don't have some solutions to share, most of the time we've got stories and we can give you support and encouragement. So we're here for you, and this has been almost a year. So I'm just in such gratitude for those of you who are sticking with us, letting us know what you want to learn about, and hanging out with us during this time. So today is period anxiety. So whether you have endometriosis or any other reproductive hormonal diagnosis, condition, or symptoms, you may deal with a period anxiety. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just explain that it's anxiety or stress, or you get really anxious either before, during, or when you think you're going to be starting your period. And sometimes even just thinking about it, you might be 2 weeks away from it, but you might suddenly start thinking about that, and fear creeps in, anxiety creeps in, anxiousness creeps in. And we really want to talk about two different ways that we have experienced this. So I myself still have cycles, and so I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how this can be presented if you still have cycles. However, Kristen's going to be talking about experiencing symptoms and anxiety surrounding phantom periods, which is after you no longer have a cycle. It might surprise you, but sometimes you will actually still get symptoms and even anxiety related to when that cyclical process that your body goes through when your body thinks it's supposed to have a period. The beautiful thing about the body is it's this just magnificent like network of brilliance. It has all of these different jobs that it does for us, keeping us alive, breathing, transporting the nutrients, digesting the food, circulating the blood, all the stuff you don't have to think about, but that's keeping you alive right now and giving you the option to even watch or listen to this episode. Your body's doing so much for you. When we're in disease, when we're in illness, when we're in depression, when we're in anxiety, our body's still attempting to communicate with us. It's trying to solve a problem. But sometimes I shouldn't say sometimes, really, the way that it communicates with us is through pain, symptoms, throwing up red flags and saying, hey, something's not right here, something's going on. And what tends to happen when we've been through chronic pain, when we've been through physical and emotional trauma, when we've had diagnoses or traumatic experiences, our body doesn't forget. And so sometimes the body still responds to triggers and stimuli, and even like seasons, times of the month, times of the year, the body still responds a certain way. And so this is an opportunity and an invitation to get really curious about what is your body doing, what is it trying to tell you, and what might that invitation be. Sometimes the invitation is like, hey dude, can you like eat some nutrient dense food and like drink some water because I'm dying here. So sometimes that's the message. Other times the message might be deeper and might be a little bit more around, hey, like these wounds that you've been carrying around with you since childhood need to be processed. You haven't processed this. and it's just like living inside of you, and that does manifest into physical symptoms when we're not paying attention to it. So the body doesn't know anything else except for to call attention to the problem. So let's just dive in. I'm gonna share with you a little bit about my experience. So because I do have endometriosis, it took me 12 years to get an official diagnosis, but I knew I had endometriosis and just treated my body like I had it because I didn't want to have surgery until I had to have surgery. So when I finally had to have my first surgery, the only one I've had, that's when I got my official diagnosis, which was actually recently. That was me. What was that? Just over 2 years ago. So it was like October 2017 when I finally got my diagnosis. However, but I knew that I had endo, and I knew that my hormones were out of whack. And so I was used to having really chronic cycles. I guess you could describe it like the periods from hell. And I would either be writhing in pain, sometimes even bedridden. I couldn't work. I couldn't stand upright. I would go completely anemic because of blood loss. I would just totally just completely anemic. And so there were so many different ways that my body responded to that. And I'll never forget how, I'm going to just go ahead and use the word traumatic. I'm not talking about, because there's different stages of trauma, and it doesn't matter what anybody says. If somebody else tells you that your trauma isn't traumatic, I'm just going to say, if it's traumatic for you, it's traumatic for you. Your body still registers that as a high stress scenario. And so even though I don't equate this with certain types of trauma that I have been through, it's a traumatic experience to be like going about your business at work when you're in a job surrounded by people, and suddenly having a cycle that you cannot control, being carried out of work because you can't walk, and trying to explain it, even though you don't have to explain it to people, but generally your boss needs to know what's going on. This was at a time when these types of scenarios were happening to me. I was between 18 and we'll say 25 is when these types of scenarios were happening with me. And that's happened. I had to call my boss. I was working at a bank, and the bathroom was way on the other side of the building. And I was wearing like skirt, heels, that whole business, ensemble, right? And I remember that I couldn't move, and I was trying to, and I'm just going to say it like, I know this is a little bit, we just don't do TMI here. We just say it how it is. But that it was just, I couldn't control the cycle. It was really heavy. So I felt like I was like MacGyver. I couldn't move. So I was like looking in cabinets. I found like Clorox wipes and I think paper towels. And I was like trying so hard to clean everything up and like figure out what the hell I was going to do. And I was probably 15 feet from my boss, but she couldn't see me. And actually nobody could see me. Thank goodness. And I called her. Like, I literally picked up the phone that was near me. She's 15 feet away at her desk. And I called her and I said, I need you to come here right now. I'm in a bank, and I'm like behind where like the tellers are and where the safe is and all that. And so there was this little section. So nobody in the teller space could see me. Customers couldn't see me. And my boss couldn't see me, but I called her in and I was like, here's what's going on. I need help. She called actually he was already my ex, but we were still really close. She called my ex and said, she needs you to come get her. He had to come pick me up. And that spot that I was in, he had to pick me up and carry me out to the car. That's not just like nothing. You might have so many emotions. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, but you may feel embarrassed anyway. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, but I still felt like this shouldn't be happening. I felt embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know that I was unwell or that that I couldn't control my body. First of all, just not being able to control your body feels traumatic. If you think about any time, if you have anxiety attacks or panic attacks, if you've ever experienced sleep paralysis, that's one of the most traumatic things that's ever happened to me. But, when you're in a situation like that, you're like working or at school or whatever. that's not easy. Like, that's not easy to go through and process. And so when that scenario happened, um, when that happened, I had to just take a step back and like surrender. Like, there's nothing I can do about this, but I also didn't do anything wrong. So whatever emotions you're feeling, let yourself feel them. If you're feeling embarrassed, do you logically know that maybe there's no need to feel embarrassed? Sure. But if you feel embarrassed, that's okay. I mean, it's normal. So after that, there would be times when I would be getting close to my cycle and I would just like not know what to do, because I didn't want something like those types of situations, because I've had multiple of those. I had one episode like that. I kid you not, this is actually kind of funny. I had driven like an hour to go to court for a ticket I had. And I'm in the parking lot. I just parked and I could not get out of my car. And I could not go to court. And you know what I was thinking? I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to have a warrant for my arrest for failure to appear because I can't control my body. And so those are just two of the many, many, many episodes like that. So whether it's just pain, even if it's not a scenario where you're in public or you're afraid you're going to have a warrant for your arrest because you can't get into court, because that would have been a disaster, me trying to walk into court in that state, or crawl or whatever. It's natural for you to then like be anxious and have anxiety when your cycle's about to start, a couple weeks before it starts, when it actually starts, and you don't even know what you're dealing with yet, but you just like feel like you need to lay in the bathtub for 7 days and die or whatever. Like, it's natural. So what we do to work through that is first normalize it. So I want to make sure we go through, I want to always give specific solutions and tools and tips that you can use to help this scenario. But before we dive into those, I want to have you share, Kristen, a little bit more about your experience with like phantom period anxiety and those symptoms and what happens for you.
So when I did get periods, I totally have had those situations. I've totally I don't even know, leaked like all the way up the back of my pants and had to borrow a sweater from a friend to cover it, or like in so much pain you can't actually like even like move to get to the bathroom, but you feel like you need to go to the bathroom, so you actually have to like, I don't even know what you would describe it, you're like hunched over and like, nobody's seen me, let me just get there.
Yeah.
It's so fun being a girl.
Yeah.
But so like phantom periods for this, and this can be for people who are on birth control that takes away like their actual cycle. Really, like any birth, when you're on birth control, period's not actually a period, but we can definitely get into that in another episode. But so like when you're on certain medications that are stopping your period, or especially like me, hysterectomy, obviously not going to get any more periods. So I still feel like I get a period. Like it's almost the same feeling that you would feel when you're starting your period. Like you get those intense cramps like in your pelvis and in your rectum, and like you're like, holy shit, it's coming. And then like you can like literally feel the blood start to come, which is really gross, but there is no TMI on this show, yeah. Obviously. So like I feel all those things like cramps and anxiety and PMS and like I'm just moody and cravings. I still get all those menstrual symptoms, but I don't get any blood. So I'm still dealing with having the cramps and the pain and having to use the heating pad and stuff like that. And it's still in a cycle. I know when I'm ovulating and I know when my period is, and if you can't see me, I'm putting quotations around that.
Yeah.
So I know when those things are happening. So like I'm ovulating in the middle of the month and my fake period, and my boyfriend now calls it fake period too.
Oh, wow.
My fake period is at the end of the month, beginning of the month, like
Yeah.
in that range. It does vary, but it's in that range. So it's so annoying. Yes, it's nice to not have the blood because I don't have to deal with menstrual products, which are expensive and can be annoying, and depending on who you are, it's gross, which we're human.
Yeah.
So like I still get mainly the cramps is the biggest one, is the cramps and like the moodiness I really notice. And like my boyfriend will know too. He'll be like, "Oh, fake period, fine." And like, so it's like and it's like the same cycle as it was when I was on birth control, which is funny.
Mm.
Um, well, actually, it's kind of like shifted a little bit. My period was actually like in the middle of the month, and then the ovulation was like the end of the month, so it's kind of like switched that
Mm.
way. Um, but yeah, like and I know that other people who've had hysterectomies or don't get their period still get those cyclical symptoms, and like especially the pain. Like yes, I have pain every day, and that's always kind of like a lingering like pain that's just like you get used to. But then you get like those cramps where you're like, you literally are like stopped in your tracks. You're like, oh, okay, let me just
Yeah.
curl up right here and die.
Yeah.
And like you literally feel like you're gonna bleed to death in your very spot. But with phantom periods, you're not bleeding, so it's very confusing. Like, when you have a period because you bleed, you get your period. Like
Mhm.
people associate a period with the bloody part of period.
Right.
So without that, it's confusing. So you don't like you can't identify it like a period, if that makes sense. Like you can't say like, oh, I have my period because I started bleeding.
Yeah. Oh, I'm having my fake period today.
And people
But
will be
yeah,
like, oh, what? I'm
yeah,
like,
people
yeah,
are like, what? Yeah.
that's what I call it.
But
And
yeah,
then
that's the thing. Like it's real symptoms. And it's such an interesting concept because I was thinking about that and I was like, yeah, I have phantom pain about where I like lost my right ovary, so I don't have a right ovary anymore. And there are times where I feel like I'm ovulating, like out of that
mm-hmm,
side, and I
totally.
know that there's not anything there. Um, so it's really interesting. Or I would just feel like pain there, and I know, and I'm like, that's interesting um, for it to be there. And so I'm curious, do you notice, so speaking of like the phantom cycles, so you basically have the phantom period, phantom ovulation. Do you notice anxiety coming on? Do you happen to link that to that? Like, do
Oh
you
yeah,
start? Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. It's so interesting because I think it took me quite a while to link my anxiety symptoms with cycle, like with my cycle. I always like looked at them as separate. And sometimes they are, right? Like if you've been dealing with anxiety for quite some time and there's different types of anxiety and it's experience different. So um, mine isn't always related to my cycle, but it was interesting when I would tense, like that's how I would experience it. I would get tense and because my anxiety would go up. And one of the things that I think happens when we do that is because we are sort of expecting it to be awful and expecting pain, that makes us more physically tense in our body. And half the time, have you ever like realized, oh, my shoulders are way up by my ears, or like
Oh
sat?
yeah, I'm like always like that, I feel like.
Yeah, Yeah, like women, we hold so much tension. We hold them like tension in our shoulders, actually in our glutes. We hold a lot of tension in our glutes, a lot of tension in our backs. And what I've noticed is there's tension linked to, as soon as that anxiety starts raising, it like triggers that stress response system. And so then we're more tense. So when we're in a tense or stress state, then it can exacerbate our pain. So it can actually make the pain worse and the symptoms even more chronic. So, and I'm not saying like, oh, we bring the symptoms on ourselves. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying it almost like heightens our experience of the symptoms. And so I think one of the important things to do is to just notice it first. Like if you have no idea whether or not you have period anxiety, to start paying attention and sort of tracking, like if you have anxiety regularly, sort of tracking it and seeing, when does my anxiety heighten, what types of triggers do I tend to experience, the frequency of panic or anxiety attacks. And if you sort of watch the trend, you can sometimes link it to triggers and things that are happening in your environment and in your life. Sometimes you can even pinpoint it all the way down to certain types of food, certain times of the month. And this is really, really important if you give yourself the opportunity to track it, because then you're just getting curious and you're looking at what is actually going on in my world. So that you can, as soon as you begin to notice symptoms, you can start taking steps to reduce them or to better manage them. So the goal is simply that, to better manage the symptoms. So of course, as you guys know, in just about every one of these episodes, I talk about the importance of nutrition and lifestyle. But let's put nutrition aside for today and just consider lifestyle changes that can really support with heightened anxiety and heightened stress. Breathing techniques, slowing down, asking yourself what you need. Like, okay, I can start to sense that my body's on edge. I'm tightening up. I'm tensing up. I'm feeling anxious. My heart is going a little bit faster than normal. I feel uneasy, even if you don't know what it is, if that's uneasiness. Okay, what do I need? What'll just help me settle, like bring a little bit of peace or bring a little bit of calm? And then you sort of make yourself a list of those things and you start doing them. It doesn't mean that they're going to just eradicate your anxiety immediately. This takes practice. It's kind of like why they call meditation a practice, which meditation is fantastic. I actually use guided healing meditations. So I pop in headphones at night and I'll listen to healing meditations that just help me put my body in a state of healing, slowing down my breathing, becoming more aware, doing a body scan from head to toe. Today, midday, which I haven't even finished like putting on my makeup for those of you watching. And that's just because in the middle of the day today, I went and I got in a really nice hot bubble bath. That's what I needed for today. I've been in a healing process myself, and I had a bunch of stuff going on this morning. And so I took the middle of the day because I've got a bunch of stuff going on this afternoon as well. So doing those things, journaling out your fears. This is a really good one. Say what you're afraid of out loud or in a journal, and you can burn it, you can throw it away, whatever. But actually go through that worst case scenario so that it becomes less scary. And sometimes I like to troubleshoot. So I'm like, well, I could be doing this and this could suddenly happen. And it's like what I'm afraid of happening. I could be in excruciating pain and have to cancel all my clients for the whole day or something like that. Okay, well, how will I handle that? If that's my worst case scenario for that day, how will I handle that? Well, I'll communicate with each and every one of my clients and let them know that I cannot be 100% for them. That's not fair to them to be 100%. If I can't be 100%, I'm going to be distracted and I'm not even serving them anyway. So I offer to reschedule. I thank them for their patience and understanding. We reschedule. So I go through like, what are the things that I'm afraid of happening and the things that I don't want these symptoms to interrupt my life. But a lot of times that fight of not wanting it to interrupt your day-to-day is the thing that creates even more anxiety. It's like we want to fight against it. I like to compare this to being in quicksand. If you're sinking into quicksand and you start kicking and fighting, you're going to die. Like, that's just it. It's not going to work. Because when we're in a state of anxiety around our period or not around our period, when we're in that state and we start to try to fight it, that's going to make it worse. So it's like, okay, what can I strategically do to give myself a sense of peace, a sense of calm, relieve pain? What can I do? And so asking yourself that question, and it's different. The answer is different for everybody. And so there are tons of herbal teas and supplements and essential oils and CBD oil and bath bombs and just so many different ways that you can begin to bring that heightened fear down a few notches. Music's a big one for me. So that's what I did when I got in my bubble bath today. I played music. It was really soothing. I just let myself totally relax and sort of surrender to the process that I was going through.
Music always makes me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and by the way, if you're in this state, I would advise you to listen to music that has the feel, vibe, and energy that you're wanting to have. Because back in my poor, pitiful me days, I would listen to really sad music. It was pretty, and it was comforting because I felt less alone in the world, but it also helped me stay stuck in that my life's hard, everything sucks, I hate my body, you know, everything's hard on me, why can't I just be a normal person? Everybody else gets to just go to work and their cycle doesn't take them out of work or whatever. Just I would go into that poor, pitiful me, there's nothing I can do about it, I've got a disease and I'm sick and this is my life. If you want to feel that way, that's up to you. But if you're actually wanting to calm the anxiety, if you're wanting to soothe yourself so that you can reduce and better manage your pain and your stress and your tension, and if you want to decrease your pain, putting yourself in a state of optimal healing by way of rhythmic, slow, controlled breathing, guided meditation, relaxation, all those things we just chatted about, that's going to help you get to that state if that's what you want. So there's tons of things that you can do to help reduce or better manage regular anxiety, period anxiety. So we talked about write out what you're afraid of. Look at it. Like, let yourself face your fear. Like, write it all out. And then figure out what the heck am I going to do if that does happen? Because you will survive it. So look at that, because then it just becomes a little bit smaller and a little less to where your body's trying to fight or flight. Because that's what anxiety is. Your body thinks you're in mortal danger, and it's like trying to send you all the signals saying, hey, you're in mortal danger. You need to run or freeze or hide or fight. So your body goes, your central nervous system is like sending you these signals. So when we make decisions to begin to better manage our anxiety, we're teaching the body like, hey, body, thanks for giving me the heads up. Not in mortal danger, thank you very much. Let's do this instead. And then you have the opportunity to soothe the central nervous system and regain control, or at least more control, over the symptoms, so that the symptoms are no longer running you. So, and this isn't perfect and it's not going to work the first time. It's just asking yourself, what do I need? And answering that question and giving yourself the space to do things that'll help you get there, and also the grace to trial and error and figure out what works for you. Yeah. Did I leave anything out, Kristen? Anything you want to?
No, I covered everything today.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Happy fake period, happy real period, happy all period. Your body's not actually against you. It is here to serve you. And the better job we do at becoming allies with our body, the easier it is to regain those reins and regain that control. So as always, you can find Kristen over at endometriosisandme.com, and then also the Facebook page and group Endometriosis and Me. Please feel free to message and say, hey, can you guys on K&K Real Talk, can you talk about this? Or here's what I'm dealing with, and I don't really know what to do with this. Let us know. We're here for you. We want to know what's going on with you. And then to stay connected with me, you can follow me on Facebook at Kenny Rochelle Coaching. And again, I am a holistic health and wellness coach who specializes in helping women with endometriosis reduce and better manage their symptoms so that we can thrive with endo. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.